Elon Musk, the guy behind Tesla, SpaceX, and X, formerly known as Twitter, saw a job posting at the University of British Columbia. He was outraged. The job was in the school's Faculty of Dentistry, and it said the job would only be eligible for certain people. You either had to have a disability, you had to be a woman, or you had to be from a racialized community. In other words, someone who is not white. Well, Musk questioned if this kind of thing is legal in Canada. UBC telling us at CTV News that it does follow federal requirements that identify and target certain groups when it comes to hiring. Remember, Elon Musk did at one point live in Canada. He immigrated here from South Africa when he was 18. He went to university in our country too, at Queen's in Kingston. Recently, of course, Musk has become ever more outspoken, railing against what he calls left-wing and progressive policies run amok. Let's bring in Daniel Lublin. He's an employment lawyer. Daniel, good to see you again. Appreciate you taking the time. Your thoughts?
Good afternoon. Thanks for having me. Mr. Musk really has no clue what he's talking about as it relates to Canadian law. He has no idea whatsoever. This is a federal research chair. It's a grant provided by the federal government. The Federal Employment Equity Act mandates that those institutions that take federal grants, federal funds, have to have diversity mandates. So this is a legal requirement by order of the federal government.
So basically what his issue is with so-called diversity, equity, and inclusion, correct? He doesn't like this kind of thing. He seems to indicate that the best person qualified should get the job, not people who have specific issues that would, perhaps marginalize them and allow them to get the job. Is that your read?
That's absolutely what he's saying. And that is a fair comment. And there are certain people, obviously, who would disagree with making a job posting based on diversity hiring requirements, and he's certainly free to take that position. But as it relates to what the law says, like his quote in X says, is this legal in Canada? The answer is yes, it absolutely is legal in Canada as it currently stands.
All right. Can you just explain as well, you were talking about it a moment ago, but just to clarify for people at home who may not be aware, and we're showing some of the footage here, it says this selection will be restricted to people with disabilities, Indigenous people, racialized people, women, people from minoritized gender identity groups. So restricted to means that if you don't, or you're not part of one of those groups, you cannot be, you won't get the job, correct?
Absolutely. It's what's known as reverse discrimination, which basically says if you're not part of one of these minority groups, you cannot apply. This position's not open to you. Every human rights code in the country basically has an exception to the fundamental rule, which is thou shalt not discriminate. And every human rights code has an exception that says you can discriminate if it's for employment equity purposes.
So employers can be, outwardly specific, so to speak, in this kind of way when it comes to hiring. There's no problem with that.
Absolutely. And as it relates to federally regulated employers, they're obligated to have a certain amount of diversity hiring. This particular position at UBC, it's a federal research chair. It means it takes money from the federal government. So this is just a binding requirement. It wasn't optional.
I know that Elon Musk wasn't, looking at these job postings personally. This was somebody else who found it and then reposted it, and he saw it, and that's what led to, this story and why we're covering it today. If people disagree with this kind of thing, let's say there's someone who doesn't fall into one of those groups, Daniel, and they want to go for that job. Are they allowed to apply or sue or try to argue that this is unfair?
They can apply. They won't get the job. They can sue in provincial human rights court, human rights tribunals. Those cases won't go well. The tribunals have basically taken a hands-off approach when it comes to reverse discrimination type cases in Canada. So they're free to make claims. It's not going to go anywhere. Really what this is it has to be a change in federal government policy. It has to be a change at the government level if there's going to be any difference in respect of these policies.
Right. So what you're saying is ultimately this is the Trudeau government federally who believes this kind of thing is the right way to go about these hirings, and therefore it would have to change at the very top in order for anything to change, at these levels.
Well, Musk is right about that in terms of where to lay this at the feet of, and that would be the federal government.